Okay, so we are beginning Hilchos Yom Tov today. Just one quick thing to correct a read of the Ramah. So the Ramah says when do we start saying Tachanun after Shavuos? So he says already the day after Isru Chag you do start. That's the 8th day of Sivan. As we mentioned before, the minhag by Sfardim is to wait till the 13th. By Ashkenazim, you get various minhagim. Some start on the 8th, some start on the 13th, and some start on the 14th when they're in Chutz La'aretz. You have all the different minhagim. Okay, but that's really just to correct the read of the Ramah. Okay, so now, Ezehu melachos asurim b'yom tov. We're in Tav Tzadi Hey, Seif Aleph. Kol malacha asura b'Shabbos asura b'Yom Tov. Any malacha that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. And that applies to an Isser D'Oraisa or an Isser D'Rabanan. We're going to obviously learn exceptions. And it applies also to Amir La'akum. Alright, telling a non-Jew. Chutz, okay, let's start off with the first main exception, is Mimelaches Ochel Nefesh. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to do Ochel Nefesh. Anything relating to preparing food. Anything, again, we're going to learn and qualify all the details as we go along. So, Ochel Nefesh, we all know, that's a pasuk. You're allowed to do that on Yom Tov itself. Vechutz, and also, well, these are extensions that are permitted because of Ochel Nefesh. Mehotza'a vehav'ara. Since Ochel Nefesh is mutter, also it's a blanket heter that you're allowed to carry. Again, we're going to qualify everything, but you're allowed to carry, even if you're not eating what you're carrying. You're still allowed to carry, and you're allowed to play with fire. You're allowed to use fire. Now, also, not only ochel nefesh itself, but even machshirei ochel nefesh. Preparations is not the exact translation, but enabling yourself to cook, such as fixing your dishes, your pots, a skewer, your fork, your knife. All these things are also mutter, even though it could have been done. It's only mutter though. These are things obviously you could have done before, but it's only mutter if shelo haya efshar la'asota me'etmol, that you are not able to do it before Yom Tov. That's when it's mutter. If you're able to do it the day before and you chose not to, then you're not allowed to on Yom Tov. But if you wanted to do it, but you couldn't, let's say, for example, you're completely honest, you weren't able to, or it was ready, and then it broke on Yom Tov. So, nothing you can do about it. So in that case, you're allowed to fix them on Yom Tov. We're going to learn more about that later. Again, so then we see, according to the Mechaber over here, when it comes to Ochel Nefesh itself, like just actual cooking, even if you could have cooked it on the day before Yom Tov, you're allowed to cook it on Yom Tov, even if it would have been just as good. Okay, so the Mechaber says Ochel Nefesh itself you could do on Yom Tov, even though it could have been done earlier. Now, the Ramah holds, and this Rav Avadia says also Sfardim should follow the Ramah lechatchila. Okay, the Ramah reads like this: V'yesh machmirin, but some are actually a little bit more mekel when it comes to afilu be'ochel nefesh atzmo. Even when it comes to actual ochel nefesh, that means actual cooking, shachtin, whatever it is. Atzmo kol she'eino mafig tam klal. If it wouldn't affect the flavor at all, imasam erev Yom Tov, then you shouldn't do it. If it wouldn't affect the flavor at all on Erev Yom Tov, if you did it the day before, then you should not be doing it on Yom Tov itself. So any kind of cooking, or shechting, whatever it is. Now the general rule is, the general assumption in the poskim, Rishonim, is that things like kneading the dough for baking, shechting, and generally cooking and roasting and all these things are better if it's done on Yom Tov than Erev Yom Tov. So in general, the rule is definitely you can do it lechatchila on Yom Tov, even according to the Rama. We're talking about things which would make no difference whatsoever. Then he says you should do it erev Yom Tov. A Mishnah Berurah gives an example where it might be better. It's definitely as good, but it might even be better if you cook it erev Yom Tov, as let's say if you make compote or you cook your fruits. So there's certain foods that certain foods sometimes they taste better actually if you cook it again and more. So for those things he says you should be machmir. Okay.
He also says the machaber would be modeh.
Yeah, I saw that.
In the case of the davar shederach lasotov pam achat liyamim rabim.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. There is a case where the machaber says it's actually asur derabanan, but we'll get to that. Okay, that's just a side exception. We'll get to. Mihu im lo asao me'erev Yom Tov v'yesh bo tzarech Yom Tov. Now, if you didn't do it erev Yom Tov and you still need it for Yom Tov, right? You could have done it the day before, but you didn't. Mutar la'asoto al yedei shinui. You're allowed then, even if you didn't, let's say, cook the compote, for example. If you didn't do it before Yom Tov, or whatever the thing is, then you can still do it on Yom Tov itself. If you pushed it off b'mezid, or some say even the machlokas by shogeg, you forgot about it, you were busy. Some say even for that you should do it b'shinui. But everyone agrees if it was be'ones, then you don't even need a shinui. So that's a question if you forgot and you're sidetracked and you're planning to do it, if that's called in the category of onus or category of mezid for this halacha. Should you do a shinui or not? Okay, but if it was completely onus, then not. Okay. Alright, Orach Chaim is one example who's machmer for forgetting that you should do it with the shinui. Okay. Fine, I think we should go on. Okay, base. Kitsira utechina uvetzira usechita vetzeda. Afal pi shehem melechet ochel nefesh asarum chachamim. So these things are cases of ochel nefesh, and they could be done erev Yom Tov. So therefore, it's asur derabanan. Okay, so these things that could easily have been done beforehand happens to be a machloket if you can do it on Yom Tov or if you have to do it before Yom Tov. If it's things that could have been done 100% as good beforehand, it's a machloket rishonim. If it's asur derabanan or an asur deraisa. Shulchan Aruch paskins, it's only an asur derabanan. And he only holds it's an asur derabanan if it's the type of malacha that are big. It's done in quantity. It's done in a big amount. And therefore it's like a big job that you don't need to be doing. It's not like cooking one little chicken. These are things that are done in major quantity that's done for many days, and it's a big, becomes like a hassle and it's time consuming, and that's not what we want you to be doing on Yom Tov.
You mean as a category, you still can't pick off one apple from the tree?
I think that's only Isser Darabanan. Right, it's a Daraisa. Correct. Even though you're picking off one apple, it's in the category of Ksira. That's right. Okay. Very good. Okay, that's it. Gimel. Okay, Gimel. Ein motzin masa ala behema b'yom tov. Can you have a donkey, you have a dog, you have a horse, can you put stuff on it to carry for you on Yom Tov? So, it's a machlokas. We're not going to get into the whole machlokas. It might be an Isser Darabanan. It might be an Isser Daraisa. It's a machlokas. It could be Shvitas Behemto. According to the Ramah, there's no Isser Shvitas Behemto on Yom Tov, only on Shabbos. Same with Mechamer. So that's a question if it's Daraisa Darabanan. Also, even if you're doing, now, normally, if you're talking about mechamer or shvitas behemto, then that would be an isser if it's dalad amos or from one rishus to another. But it's even, neither it's the lashon of ein motzi, the Mishnah Berurah points out, is lav davka. Even if it's in one place, one rishus, less than dalad amos, it would still be aser because of uvdin dechol. But anyways, to make an animal carry for you on Yom Tov, it's an isser at least derabanan.
So you can carry yourself, but you can't have your animal carry for you.
Correct. Dalad. Muksa. Now, this could become a big topic, but we'll keep it minimal. Muksa. Alpha pisha mutter b'Shabbos. Even though muksa we know is mutter on Shabbos. What's he talking about? He's talking about the few cases that are muksa, that muksa is mutter on Shabbos. Mishnah Berurah gives a couple examples, such as you have stuff that you sell. You have it merchandise. But it's the type of merchandise where it's not chisar and kis. It's generally you'll never touch it, but you know that if it comes out a random Shabbos and you need it, you'll take it for yourself. So that you're allowed to do on Shabbos. Another example is, or hichnisa la'otzar. You have stuff you put aside for storage. You're not planning to use it, but you might. So because of that, those cases you're allowed to use it on Shabbos. It's not muksa, if the case arises. Machmat miu is something that's a little bit disgusting. Geref or a graf shel re'i. So that's really disgusting and it's repulsive and you got to get it out of your place. That's going to be graf shel re'i. We're not talking about. That's going to be mutter on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Talking about whatever a limited cases of muksa that are mutter on Shabbos. So the Shulchan Aruch writes the mechaber hechmiru bo b'Yom Tov v'aseru. We're more machmer for this category on Yom Tov, more than Shabbos, because people are quicker to be mezalzel by Yom Tov than Shabbos. Shabbos, everyone knows it's Shabbos. Yom Tov, it's a little bit more relaxed. So the Chazal made a few chumras here and there on Yom Tov that are more than Shabbos. This is one of them.
But food that's only with schora, not muktzah. Right?
Food that's only schora, generally not. Correct. One example we're going to get to is, let's say you put stuff to get dried. So you put grapes or dates and you put them to dry. So those, you grogros imakim, you're makza biyadayim, you're like pushing it away completely because it actually becomes repulsive. You can't eat it when it's in the middle of the process. Okay, that's a separate case. And the Rama writes, V'yesh matirin muksa afilu b'yom tov. And the Rama is mekel, which I believe most Ashkenazim are. They're mekel, and they say no, there is no difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov for these categories. Aval no lad aser. I mean, that's mi'ikar din. It doesn't mean that they're not machmer also, but mi'ikar din, they have the Magen Avraham based on the Pri Chadash, also the Rishal, and it's the Ramah. Okay, aval no lad aser divrei amafil b'Shabbos. But whatever is aser for no lad for Shabbos is also going to be aser for Yom Tov. V'chol muktzah she'eno ba'alei chaim kegon otzar shel peros ve'etzim, and here specify. Now, if you have certain muktzah that's not ba'alei chaim, like chickens. So chickens, we're not talking about chickens. Chickens, for example, could be muktzah because you use them just for their eggs. So they're muktzah for the sense of moving them and shechting them, v'chulei. Chickens that you're meyuchad to shech, to eat on Yom Tov, those are not muktzah whatsoever. But okay, let's go on. So if you have, let's say, these fruit or trees that are set aside.
The Mishnah says no, there you have to say
yeah, for those, the muktzah, for sure you have to. We're going to see how to treat them later. So those, you have to set them aside if you want to use them. He says over here, we'll keep reading, we'll see what's different about the two categories. So by inanimate objects, or whatever, perod ve'etzim, sagi kishiyomar mikana ninotel ve'en sarich shiyirshom. So this category, of perot and etzim, you can verbally just set aside and say, these I'm going to use on Yom Tov, and that's okay. there are other things, and you don't have to make any physical act. You don't have to make any drawings, or you don't have to make any marks on their backs, or anything like that, or in the food. You don't have to do anything physical, just completely verbal. That's 100% enough. And Mishnah Berurah does point out, though, that's a machlokas. Some say no, for everything you do have to even make a physical action, and we don't just say yesh breira and it comes with mutter, whatever you end up coming to use. In other words, because the case is, you have like a whole storehouse, and a lot of it's muksa, but you want to say, in this area, or in this storehouse, I'm going to end up using some of it on Yom Tov. But we don't know which you're going to end up using. So you're just saying some of it I'm going to use, and I'm not deciding which ones, but it's going to be from this area. So there's an issue of yesh breira. And so by yesh breira, we're mekel ben yesod derabanan. But he points out that some poskim hold you need to make a physical act, a marker, or make some kind of a differentiation physically, a demarcation. So the Mishnah Berurah says, in general you could be mekel, but for something like simokim and grogeros, then where you're mamish, put them aside extra, you put them on a roof and you say, I'm not touching them, and they become gross. So in the meantime, so then knows you should make some kind of a physical act. Okay, but the Evid there might be room to be mekel. Okay. That was his kind of a pshara l'chumra. Okay? Muter lahachin yom tov rishon l'sheni b'shnei yamim tovim shel galios. Now, what happens if you have 2 days Yom Tov in a row? So, this is in Chutz La'aretz, right? So you have 2 days of Yom Tov, and each day it's a suffix. So, normally, you can't be mechin from the first day Yom Tov to the second day Yom Tov. Why? Because if today is Yom Tov and tomorrow's not, you're being mechin from Yom Tov to Achol. And if it's vice versa, then, that's the reason why you can't, you can't. If today's Chol, then it's okay, but we don't know if today's Chol. So that's why you're never allowed to be making from one day to the next. That's if you're doing with a maisa. And then they point out even with chickens. In other words, verbally, the Chiddush of the Ramah over here is you're allowed to go to take things that are muksa, and verbally, you are allowed to be making from the first day Yom Tov to the second day Yom Tov. But only verbally, and not, because it's like, there's two ways to learn it, but one of them is a Iman Hashach. In other words, either today is Chol, and therefore you did nothing wrong, and if today is Yom Tov, then you didn't really accomplish anything, because you didn't do anything b'yadayim with the Maisa, and you just verbally were making something, but it's such a weak hachana, and you didn't accomplish anything because tomorrow turned out to be chol, and you didn't accomplish anything by doing your verbal hachana, because you don't need it. You don't need to have it. There's no muksa on the next day. If today is Yom Tov and tomorrow is not Yom Tov, there's no Isser muksa on the next day. But anyway, a lot of it is because Amira is a lot more kal. But Orach Chaim, but the poskim point out, and we're going to learn later on, you can't verbally be making your chickens from one day to the next, from the first day Yom Tov to the second day Yom Tov. Okay, I think that's enough for that. Let's go on. Taf Tzadi Vav Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galios. So we're going to learn a little bit about the second day Yom Tov. Magolia shosin shnei yamim tovim misafek kol ma she'asur berishon asur b'sheni. Okay. Now, whatever is asur on the first day is asur on the second day, right? That's if you're in Chutz La'aretz, you treat both days the same. Right? We learned already. You're not going to say shechianu on this. You even say shechianu on the second day if it's the first days of Yom Tov, because we treat each one as a complete safek. And if the second day is Yom Tov, that means the first day wasn't. It was really chol. So anyway, so they each are treated basically the same. We're going to see an exception. V'hayu nadin l'misha mezalzel bo v'im hu tzurba merabanan lo hayu machmir l'dosa ela hayu maltinoto. Now, if a person is mezalzel on Yom Tov, again, what's it referring to? It's a whole discussion, but especially the second day. If a regular person is mezalzel on Yom Tov, so that the Beis Din of the town has the right, and sometimes they're supposed to put him in nidui, and excommunication. But if it's a chacham, they just give him lashes.
Do you have the word hayu min adin, or just min adin?
I have v'hayu.
I have min adin.
All right.
Difference.
Okay. Okay, Beis. Now, ein chiluk ben rishon l'sheni, ella, so we learned, the first day and the second day in Chutz La'aretz is the same, except, here's two main exceptions. Le'inyan meis. So if someone dies, on the first day of Yom Tov, a Jew is not allowed to bury him. But the second day of Yom Tov, the Jew is actually allowed to pick up the shovel, dig, and bury him. For the kavod of the mace, we're a mekel on the second day. Because the second day is really midarabanan. We just treat it like the first day. But another exception, v'chen lichol et ha'ayin. If a person has a small, a minor eye problem, if it's a real eye infection, it's generally considered pikuach nefesh. But we're talking about, it's a very minor condition, or it's already been treated, and now it's at the end of treatment, and it's not considered a sakana anymore. In such a case, it would be asur to do, we're talking about refuah, we're not talking about putting makeup on your eyes, we're talking about refuah, some kind of an ointment. So then it would be asur to put it on the first day, if you're doing refuah, that's an isur darabanan we're talking about. But on the second day,
I remember a Kornfeld said putting in eye drops for dry eye, not where you have an infection in the eye.
Okay, dry eye.
Just so that it's more comfortable. You can't do it on Shabbos, and this is probably what we're talking about. That probably would be able to be done.
For sure it would be second day until.
Yeah.
So, so dry depends on the case, but it could be that it's not allowed on the first case.
On Thursday.
The first day, I mean. It depends on the case. It depends how dry. Yeah. You would have to be able to function with a little bit of dry eye. Yeah. If you can't function well, then you need to, then for sure you're allowed to, because you're not doing any Isser Malacha at all. It's just called Refuah. Yeah. So if you can't function, then it's Matter. Okay. Alright. So anyways, what do we see from here? On Lichol Da'ayin, on Yom Tov, Sheni, you're allowed to do any Refuah, even if it's a complete Malacha Darabanan, an Isser Darabanan, a Shvus. Not a Malacha Daraisa. Malacha Daraisa you can't do on the second day, but on the second day Yom Tov, you're allowed to do any kind of Refuah. Not even things that are, maybe mutter on Shabbos, for everybody. Because, it's not even an issue of Gzeira Sichas Amanim. You're allowed to do anything that's even an Isser Darabanan for Refuah on the second day Yom Tov. Haga. Or Sha'ar Choli She'en Bo Sakana. We're talking about a Choli that there's no Sakana whatsoever. And even then, you're allowed to do an Isser Darabanan.
So you can take aspirin, vitamins, all those things.
Kol Shekain, you can do anything that has no Isser Darabanan. It's just a Gzeira of Sichas Amanim. So for sure, taking any kind of medicine, just you can't do an Isser Daraisa, which is not, it's almost hard. Most things are Isser Darabanan or the Gzeira. So that for sure. So anyway, all those things are mutter on second day Yom Tov. Even though things that might be asur for a Jew to do on the first day, and you have to get a goy to do it for you. On the second day, it's 100% mutter with a Jew. Chutz miyom tov sheni shel Rosh Hashanah d'shnei yamim kedusha achas arich tehen. So the exception is the second day Rosh Hashanah. So the second day Rosh Hashanah, you're not allowed to do an Isser Darabanan for Refuah, and I don't remember if you're allowed to take a pill of the Gzeira. If the Gzeira Sichas Amanim applies on the second day Rosh Hashanah. I'm not sure, but that we have to double check.
That's what he's saying.
He's talking about Lichol at Ayin, which is a mamish and Isser Darabanan. Let's say using ointments. It sounds like it would be the same. That it's asur the first, whatever is asur on the first day is asur on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Agreed. I'm just not 100% positive. You guys can let me know. I just want to see it inside. Haga, v'davka shvus darabanan dumi de Michal eina. We're talking about any shvus darabanan. That's like Michal eina. Aval, av malacha, but if it's a mamish, one of the lamentet malachos, alright? Asur li Yisrael, and even a toda. Asur li Yisrael asotu afilu b'yom tov sheni. So then there's no difference. Okay? So let's go on. We finished, should we stop? Yeah, we'll stop here. Good?
Sure. Thank you.